The marble floors of Thompson Associates law firm echoed with designer heels as my stepmother Diana swept past me, her 2 children Robert and Cassandra in tow. The smug satisfaction on their faces was almost comical. They'd spent years ensuring I'd be excluded from this moment, and now they thought they'd succeeded. Family only, Diana smirked, her red-soled Louboutins pausing at the conference room door. You understand, don't you, Katherine? Your father was quite clear about who he considered family. I sat quietly in the waiting area, my simple black dress and lack of flashy jewelry making me invisible to them, exactly as I'd planned. They had no idea that while they'd been playing family politics, I'd been building an empire that would swallow their inheritance whole. Of course, I replied softly, watching Robert adjust his Rolex bought with company money, as my auditors had carefully documented. I'll wait here. Cassandra couldn't resist a final dig. Don't worry, we'll have HR send your final paycheck to your tiny apartment. Though after today you might want to start job hunting. If they'd bothered to check, they'd know I'd sold that apartment months ago. My real home was the penthouse of the city's most exclusive building owned by one of my holding companies. But perception was a powerful tool and I'd learned to use it well. The heavy doors closed behind them, shutting me out of my father's will reading. Or so they thought. My phone buzzed discreetly, a message from my CFO. Acquisition complete. All shares transferred. Waiting for your signal. I smiled, thinking about the last conversation I'd had with my father 6 months ago, before the cancer took him. He'd called me to his study, past the family photos that never included me, to deliver what he thought was a final punishment. You'll get nothing, he declared, his voice weak but still imperious. Diana and her children know how to run a business. You're just a disappointment who couldn't even keep a job in our company. What he never knew was that each failed job had been carefully planned, moving through different departments, learning every aspect of Thompson Industries from the ground up. While Diana's children took long lunches and claimed credit for others' work, I was building a detailed understanding of the company's strengths and weaknesses. And its vulnerabilities. Another message lit up my phone. Stock purchase confirmed. 51% controlling interest secured through shell companies. Legal teams standing by. The company they thought they were inheriting had already been sold, to me. Through a complex web of holding companies and investment firms, I'd gradually acquired enough shares to take control. The money had come from my mother's inheritance, the one my father thought he'd blocked me from accessing. My real mother, who died when I was young, had been smarter than he knew. She'd set up a trust that would mature on my 30th birthday, managed by her own family's bank. The same bank that had happily funded my systematic takeover of Thompson Industries. The conference room door opened slightly as Harrison Schmidt, my father's longtime lawyer, slipped out. He gave me a subtle nod. Everything was ready. Katherine, he said loudly enough for those inside to hear, perhaps you should join us after all. There's been an interesting development. I stood up, smoothing my dress, a custom Chanel that cost more than Robert's car, though its subtle elegance masked its value. Just like its wear. Are you sure? I asked, matching his volume. I wouldn't want to intrude on family matters. Diana's voice cut through the door. Harrison, what are you doing? She's not supposed to be part of this. On the contrary, Harrison replied, opening the door fully. As the new majority owner of Thompson Industries, Ms. Katherine Thompson has every right to be here. The silence that followed was absolutely perfect. The conference room felt like a scene frozen in time. Diana's perfectly maintained facade cracked, her cosmetically enhanced features struggling to maintain composure. Robert's Rolex clinked against the mahogany table as his hand trembled, and Cassandra's designer glasses slipped down her nose as she frantically flipped through the documents in front of her. This is impossible, Diana finally whispered, her voice losing its usual condescending tone. Thompson Industries is a family company. We're the only shareholders. Harrison cleared his throat, distributing new documents to everyone. Actually, over the past 18 months, various investment groups have been acquiring shares. Sterling Ventures, Phoenix Holdings, Artemis Capital. He paused, looking at me. Would you like to explain, Miss Thompson? I sat down at the head of the table, my father's old spot. Those are all my companies. Shell corporations I established using my mother's trust fund. The same fund you told everyone was worthless, Diana. Robert's face reddened. But, But I'm the CFO. I would have known if someone was buying up shares. Would you? I pulled up the company's financial records on the conference room's display screen. The same way you knew about the shell companies you created to funnel company money into your personal accounts? He went pale. My investigators had documented every penny he'd stolen. Or perhaps, I continued, turning to Cassandra, the way you knew about the contracts being awarded to your friends' companies in exchange for kickbacks? Cassandra's expensive manicure drummed nervously on the table. You can't prove. I can prove everything, I cut her off. Every fraudulent transaction, every manipulated contract, every penny stolen from my father's company while you all played at being executives. Diana stood up, her authority crumbling. Your father specifically wrote you out of his will. This is illegal. Harrison intervened, his legal training evident in his measured tone. Actually, Mrs. Thompson, the purchase of shares through legitimate investment vehicles is perfectly legal. Your stepdaughter owns 51% of Thompson Industries through entirely proper channels. My phone buzzed again, another message from my team. Security teams in position. HR has prepared the termination papers. Waiting for your command. Now then, I said, opening my laptop, let's discuss the changes that will be implemented immediately. Changes? Robert laughed nervously. You can't just walk in here and... I can and I will, I replied calmly. As of this moment, the board of directors is dissolved. New leadership will be appointed by the end of day. And you three, I smiled, thinking of all their years of cruelty, are facing some interesting choices. Diana sank back into her chair, her perfectly curated world collapsing. What choices? Simple. You can either face criminal charges for your various financial irregularities, I gestured to the damning evidence on screen, or you can accept my offer of entry-level positions within the restructured company. Entry-level? Cassandra shrieked. I'm the marketing director. You were the marketing director, I corrected. Now you're nothing, unless you choose to earn a real position through actual work rather than nepotism. Security appeared at the door. My security team, not the ones they'd hired to keep me out of the building. Should we escort them out, Miss Thompson? Not yet, I replied, watching their faces as reality sank in. They need to understand exactly what happened here today. The next hour unfolded like a masterclass in corporate restructuring. I pulled up detailed reports of every mistake, every fraudulent decision, and every incompetent move they'd made while running my father's company into the ground. The Singapore deal you botched, Robert? I pulled up the financial analysis. Cost us $50 million. Your brilliant restructuring plan, Cassandra? Destroyed employee morale and drove out our best talent. And Diana. I turned to my stepmother. Your social climbing expenses charged to the company account? All documented. Diana's perfectly maintained composure finally shattered. You planned this. All those years playing the quiet stepdaughter. While you were busy excluding me from family photos, I nodded. I was learning every aspect of the business. Each time you demoted me to a lower position, I gained more insight into the company's operations. Thank you for that, by the way. Harrison distributed more documents, their termination papers alongside their potential new contracts. Entry-level positions with clear stipulations. No special treatment, no shortcuts, actual work required. This is your actual inheritance, I explained. A chance to earn what you thought you deserved. Though I should mention the positions are in our new office, in Milwaukee. Milwaukee. Cassandra's voice hit a note that probably cracked her designer glasses. But our lives are here. Our friends, our country club memberships. All funded by company money you didn't earn, I reminded her. Money that should have been reinvested in the business my father spent his life building before you three started treating it like your personal ATM. My phone buzzed with another update. Police have secured the evidence of financial fraud. Awaiting your decision on pressing charges. Robert, always the first to look for an angle, leaned forward. Surely we can make a deal. The publicity of a fraud scandal wouldn't be good for the company. You mean the publicity of how I uncovered your crimes and saved the company? I smiled. Actually, the business press loves that narrative. Wrong daughter returns to save family legacy. It's already written. They're just waiting for my signal to publish. Diana's hand shook as she reached for the entry-level contract. This is cruel. Cruel. I raised an eyebrow. Like when you moved my mother's portrait to the basement. Or when you told the board I was mentally unstable when I questioned your spending. Or perhaps when you convinced my father to write me out of his will while he was on pain medication. The security team shifted slightly. They'd uncovered that particular manipulation during their investigation. The contracts are actually quite generous, Harrison interjected. Full benefits, clear advancement paths based on merit, and... He paused significantly, immunity from prosecution if accepted. My phone lit up with the latest company valuation. Our stock had already risen 10% on rumors of new management. I turned the screen so they could see their future slipping away. You have 1 hour to decide, I announced, standing up. After that, I meet with the SEC about your various financial indiscretions. Walking to the door, I stopped and turned back. Oh, and Diana? That portrait of my mother? It's already been restored to its rightful place in the main lobby, next to the new plaque commemorating the company's return to proper management. The next few weeks transformed Thompson Industries. Those who accepted the entry-level positions found themselves actually working for the first time in their lives. Robert, stripped of his executive privileges, discovered he had a talent for basic accounting when he actually applied himself. Cassandra, after initially refusing and then facing potential fraud charges, took a customer service position and learned what real marketing needs were. Diana chose to decline the offer. Last I heard, she was trying to maintain her social status by writing a tell-all book. Unfortunately for her, the non-disclosure agreement in my father's will, the one she hadn't bothered to read fully, prevented that. My father's old office was transformed into a memorial of sorts, displaying the company's history, including the darker period of their mismanagement and its subsequent resurrection. His last words to me, "You'll get nothing," hung ironically beside the headlines announcing my successful takeover. The company flourished under proper leadership. Employee morale soared, innovations returned, and our stock price tripled. The Thompson name once again stood for excellence rather than excess. As for me, I kept my modest office, now just one of many I maintained throughout the company. It reminded me of an important lesson. True power doesn't need to announce itself. It simply needs to wait for the right moment to transform from shadow to substance. And sometimes, the best revenge isn't in taking everything from those who wronged you, it's in forcing them to earn what they thought they deserved all along. My mother's portrait now watches over the lobby, her slight smile seeming to appreciate the irony that her trust fund, the one they thought worthless, had ultimately saved her husband's legacy from their greed. Justice, like success, is sometimes best served not cold, but with a lesson in humility that lasts a lifetime. 6 months after the takeover, Thompson Industries had transformed beyond recognition. The quarterly board meeting provided the perfect stage for evaluating how far we'd come, and how far my stepfamily had fallen. Robert sat in the back row of the conference room, no longer at the executive table. His discount store suit replaced the designer labels, and he clutched a folder of meticulously prepared basic accounting reports. The past months in accounts receivable had taught him more about real finance than his entire pretend CFO career. Next presentation, I announced from the head of the table. Robert Thompson, please share your findings on our new cost efficiency measures. He stood nervously, all his previous arrogance replaced by actual competence. Yes, Ms. Thompson. Our analysis shows a 40% reduction in unnecessary expenses since the restructuring. Cassandra, seated near the door in her customer service team leader uniform, took notes diligently. Her recent promotion from basic phone representative had been earned through genuine effort, something that still seemed to surprise her. My phone buzzed with an urgent message. Diana spotted entering building. Security awaiting instructions. I smiled slightly, right on schedule. The main doors burst open as Diana strode in, still clutching her designer handbag like a shield, though her outfit wasn't quite as premium as before. This is a closed meeting, my chief of security stepped forward. I have something everyone needs to hear, Diana declared, her voice lacking its former authority. About Katherine's takeover. You mean the legal acquisition of shares through legitimate investment vehicles? Harrison spoke up from his seat. The same acquisition you tried to challenge in court 3 times and lost. Diana faltered slightly. Her recent legal defeats had cost her most of her personal fortune, the parts that weren't frozen in fraud investigations. I have proof. She started. Of what? I stood slowly, commanding the room's attention. Of how you manipulated my father's medications to change his will. Or perhaps of your offshore accounts where you hid company funds. Because we already have all of that documented. Robert and Cassandra shifted uncomfortably in their seats, their own immunity deals suddenly feeling very valuable. Actually, Diana's voice cracked slightly, I came to apply for the program. The room fell silent. Even Harrison looked surprised. The entry-level position offer expired months ago, I reminded her. I know, but... She clutched her bag tighter. The country club revoked my membership. My social circle. She swallowed hard. They all work for you now. I let her stand there for a moment, feeling the weight of every eye in the room. This woman who had erased me from family photos, who had poisoned my father against me, who had tried to steal my inheritance, was now begging for what she'd once mockingly offered me, a chance to work. There is one position available, I said finally. In our Milwaukee office. Entry-level like the others. No special treatment, no shortcuts, no social status. Milwaukee, she whispered, her perfectly maintained facade cracking completely. The same offer Robert and Cassandra accepted, I nodded. Though they've actually earned their recent promotions. You'd be starting even lower mailroom. I believe we have an opening. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. Diana, who had once relegated me to the company mailroom to humiliate me, would now begin her career there. And if I refuse? Then the SEC would be very interested in these. I pulled up documents on the screen behind me. Your private accounts, your manipulation of company resources, your role in the will's modification.